Thank you for standing. The word of the Lord reads, So Joshua said to the children of Israel, Come here and hear the words of the Lord your God. And Joshua said, By this you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Hivites, and the Perizzites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Jebusites. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is crossing over before you into the Jordan. Let me read that once again. Turn back. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is crossing over before you into the Jordan. Now therefore, take for yourselves 12 men from the tribes of Israel, 1 man from every tribe. And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of the Jordan, that the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off, the waters that come down from upstream, and they shall stand as a heap. Amen. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. I want to talk from the thought, come here. Come here. And I solicit your continued prayers. When the Lord decided he would call a people to make himself known to the world he had created, he did so with the full intent of leading them into that revealed knowledge every step of the way.
Yes, sir. That's right, man.
And lead them he did. Yeah. And the journey they embarked upon together to get there, to say the least, was an eventful journey full of highs and lows, yeah, and peaks and valleys. They were up sometimes and down sometimes. They were good sometimes, and other times they were just as bad as they could be. At times the children of Israel were obedient and they were faithful. Yes. But at other times they were rebellious and unfaithful.
Talk, man.
Nevertheless, when the Lord delivered them, he had already decided to lead them, even though there would be plenty of times they would not be following him. Y'all, nobody could ever accuse God of not leading his people, because there would never be a time that he would not be leading them. Yes. He led them out of Egypt and into the wilderness by way of the Red Sea, by a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Yes, sir. He gave them their liberty and laws along with his love and mercy. Talk, man. And Lord knows they needed every drop of it. He supplied all their needs, yes, because they never got lost, never got hungry, never went hungry, never went thirsty, never got defeated by their enemies, and never did their shoes or clothes wear out. And as an added bonus during the journey, whatever he led them to, he led them through. Whether it was famine, foes, or unfavorable times, a stubborn king, a Red Sea, or an extremely dry wilderness, whatever he led them to, he led them through.
Yes, he did.
I don't know who needed this the most, but the Lord never leads you anywhere and leaves you because there are no other options.
All right.
If he leads you to it, he will eventually lead you through it. Whether you feel like you're in the recklessness of a storm, the barrenness of the wilderness, whether you feel like you're vulnerable to the attacks of the enemy or in a situation you personally have no control over whatsoever. You know, the stuff that can happen to you while you're on the way to any place God is leading you.
Yes, sir.
While in the process of following him, if he leads you to it, he will lead you through it. Even if you feel like you're up the creek without a paddle. Even if you feel like you're between a rock and a hard place. If he leads you to it, he will lead you through it. And y'all, I bring this to the forefront of our attention because there seems to always be something that threatens to block our way, standing between where we are in the present and where God is determined and diligent to lead us in the future. For Joshua and this second generation of Israel, removed from Israel, the Jordan River happens to be one of those things. Now, the Jordan River is, without question, a formidable, concentrated object of opposition that stands in the way of the land the Lord is in the process of leading them to, because it is mentioned no less than 11 times in this chapter. 11 times in these 17 verses. This literary emphasis of the writer suggests the only way they could get to the promised land is if they could first get through their Jordan. And what intensifies the task, my brothers and sisters, is that before them is the fact that the Jordan is on swole. That's the situation. It's on swole. It's a raging river. Every year in the springtime, it would overflow or flood its banks due to the spring rains and the melting snow from the mountainous region of Lebanon, which would come rushing down and spill and pour into the Jordan River. Its waters would reach well up into the trees and cover all of the undergrowth, you know, the smaller trees and the vegetation. When it was in flood stage, it was in flood stage. Even at the low places, the fords of the river, it presented an impassable situation. With all the people numbered with Joshua, there was just no viable option, no human means by which to cross the Jordan other than by swimming, which would have presented its own particular hazard because one could get easily caught up in a 10-mile-an-hour current and be swiftly taken under and downstream, subject to the fate of the river. The question quickly becomes, Cable, how can you get to what God has promised you if you can't get across your Jordan? How are you going to get to the promise, the potential, and the prosperity God has for you on the other side if you can't make it through this chaotic, uncooperative, intimidating, problematic body of circumstance? How are you going to get to the promised land if you can't get past your Jordan? I don't know if you're in agreement with me or not, but there seems to always be something that threatens to block our way, standing between where we are now and where God is leading us to in the near future. That's your Jordan. Have you ever had a Jordan River-like situation to come between you and where God was leading you to? Have you ever had a problem in flood stage, you know, that was chaotic and out of control, that intimidated your faith and would not cooperate with your courage, that threatened your ability to go forward in the direction God was leading you in. It just kept coming because it was in flood stage. You looked up on Monday, it was there. You looked up on Tuesday, it was still there. You looked up in June, it was there. July, it was there. August, have you ever had a problem in flood stage that just kept coming at you? You had to get through it before you could claim what God had promised you. You know, your peace, your joy, your prosperity, your rejuvenated potential, you know, your marriage, your family, a house, your financial security, you know, the things that you know and are assured of that God has promised you. Child of God, you know what the Lord has promised you, but before you can receive it, you got to get past your Jordan. Underemployment Jordan, because you know you ain't making enough like you really need to, and that's why a whole lot of folk have to work 2 and 3 and 4 jobs, because you got this Jordan you gotta get over. Unresolved marriage issues Jordan. Whatever is keeping you up at night and upset all day long Jordan. The unprofitability of your business Jordan. An existing health problem Jordan. An upcoming medical procedure Jordan. Staying clean and sober Jordan. Making ends meet in your retirement Jordan. Trying to keep your family together Jordan. That thing that you don't want nobody else to know about Jordan. Dealing with the loss of a loved one Jordan. A tough decision you need to make sooner rather than later Jordan. You know what God has promised you, but you got to get this Jordan. You got to get this Jordan. You have to go through out of your way. You got to get across it right now. And right now, your Jordan ain't rolling anywhere. Anybody know stuff still happens when you follow God? Anybody know that stuff still happens when you follow? Trouble still comes, issues still occur, stuff still happens when you follow God, because your Jordan is at flood stage. That means it's outside of normal boundaries. That means you will get to it sooner than you think, because while you are on your way to meet it, it's flowed out of its boundaries and it's on its way to meet you. Come on, that's why you can get up in the morning and not even leave your house and your Jordan will meet you at your front door. Y'all, the degree of difficulty always seems higher when you are in transition, when you are trying to get somewhere. Anybody know that? Seems like when you're trying to do something, when you're trying to get somewhere, when you're trying to improve your life, it seems like the degree of difficulty is always a lot higher than it was if you were just trying to be still. And to add insult to injury, y'all, it always gets that way at harvest time. Don't miss that. That's what the text said. That's what the text says about this situation that Joshua and the children of Israel is in. It says right at harvest time, the Jordan would always overflow its banks. Right when it's time to be blessed from the fruit of your labor, right when you get to reap the good seeds you have sown, here comes your Jordan interrupting the party. Will anybody admit that you need the Lord's help to help you cross your Jordan? Will anybody admit that it's the truth that you can't make it across your Jordan if you don't have the Lord helping you to make it? So come here and hear the words of the Lord our God. That's what Joshua says to the children of Israel. Y'all, someone suggested that maybe they were concerned about not only crossing the Jordan, but about the battles they would have to fight on the other side. So in order to calm whatever fears they may have had and to generate the assurance they needed going forth, Joshua tells them to come here, to come closer, to hear and listen to what God has to say. First of all, the God we serve is a living God, and he is among us. He was setting the stage, letting them know that there's a difference between the God we serve and the God that the people of Canaan serve. Our God is alive and he is living. And y'all may think that's not a relevant word, but I need you to understand there's a whole lot of young atheists going around thinking that God is not alive. But the devil is a liar because he's alive in me. Is that anybody else's testimony? Come on, can you shout, the God is in me? Listen, I need you to understand what Joshua was telling them. We serve a living God, and he is among us. Right about this time in the old church, they used to say, he walked with me, he talks with me, and tells me that I am his own. But Joshua said that he will drive out those who occupy the land he's promised us. Did you hear that? He will drive out those who occupy the land he has promised us. I need somebody to understand the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. May I translate that? Everything belongs to God. So it is within his rights to promise you what someone else may have in their possession at the moment. Listen, I'm not trying to wish bad on anybody, but if the Lord promised you that job, it doesn't matter who's got it right now. If the Lord promised you that position, it doesn't matter who's in it right now. If the Lord promised you that house, it doesn't matter who's in it right now. If the Lord promised you that brother, it doesn't matter who he's with right now. I'm trying to help. If the Lord promised you that sister, it doesn't matter who she's with right now. This is for us. If the Lord promised us a church, it doesn't matter who's in it right now. Oh, I wish I had some help. Open the house, trust him for it, and wait on him. Do I have anybody who knows that the wait is worth it? Am I right about it? Do I have any witnesses in the house who know you had to wait on God a time or two, but before it was all over, said and done, the wait was worth it? Somebody testify to your neighbor, say, neighbor, the wait was worth it. But church, they needed some assurance right then and there for what they were facing now. That their Jordan River was in front of them, and it was in flood stage. In order to demonstrate and prove his power and presence among them, y'all, God would literally go before them to lead them as his presence would occupy the Ark of the Covenant. Y'all, the Ark of the Covenant, remember, was this rectangular box with the lid on top of it, which was overlaid with gold on the inside and on the outside. It had two cherubim angels on the opposite sides of the lid, and they were facing each other. And you know, they would have one right here and one right there, and they would be facing each other. And the space between them represented the mercy seat. And y'all, the mercy seat was the place where God met his people. Wait a minute, you don't understand what I'm trying to say. Listen, I need you to know that God can't meet you without some mercy, because you don't deserve to be in his presence. You've done nothing to get there. So in order for God to meet you, he has to mix it with some mercy. Is there anybody in the house who can thank God for the mercy he extended you just so he can meet you? Yeah, he came to see about you just when you needed it most, but in order to do it, he had to have some mercy. Listen, my brothers and sisters, listen, the ark represented the presence and power of God amongst his people. Y'all don't miss this. The priests who were bearing the ark, you know, who were carrying the ark, they were to go ahead of everybody else, including Joshua. and they had been instructed to stay completely behind the ark. The people, the priests, were instructed to go in front of them, and the people were instructed to go behind them. And they were instructed to stay a distance from them, which measured a little more than a mile and a half, mile rather. And at no time were they to get any closer to it than a half mile or overtake it, pass it up. They were to stay behind it for the whole trip. They were to reverence God's presence, but not only for that reason, they were going away they had never been before. Okay, here's the point, y'all. Only God knows the way that He's leading you, so God's got to go first. Did you hear what I said? God's got to go first. Come on, I'm working on something. But family, may I tell you why He needs to go first? Because Joshua said that as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, as soon as the soles of their feet shall rest in the waters of the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off. And y'all, it happened exactly the way that Joshua said, and more importantly, the way God intended. The priest bearing the ark stepped into the water of the Jordan, and the flow of its water was cut off upstream. Somebody say upstream. And there was right then and there a way created out of no way. Y'all missed that. Y'all know when to shout, y'all. And right then and there, God created a way out of no way through the Jordan. Family, we don't have an ark of the covenant these days to go before us into the Jordans that threaten to block our way, to claiming what the Lord wants us to have. But we do have something else that represents His presence and His power among us just the same. We don't have an ark, Landel, but we do have His Word. And His Word represents the presence and power of God. Okay, listen, come here, y'all, because I want you to get all of this. Every time the Lord gives me, or any preacher for that matter, anytime He gives us a word to give to you, the purpose of that word is to go out in front of you, to go before you into your Jordan, to lead you through to the other side. So come here and get behind this word. The problem with some of us is that we're going into our Jordans that have not been cut off by the word of God. They are still chaotic and problematic situations because we have not stayed behind the word long enough that the Lord sent to go in front of us. A whole lot of folk have jumped into that Jordan uncovered with no word they received from the Lord. Listen, y'all, in every service, in every Bible study, the Lord is letting you know that He's willing to go in front of you if you would just wait until He gets there. Because if you don't honor the space between you and the Word, between you and God's Word, what needs to be prepared before you get there won't be prepared. It won't be cleared out. It won't be cut off. It won't be tried up. It won't be discontinued. It won't be brought under control. Somebody tell your neighbor, come here and get behind this word that God is sending through your pastor to go before you into your Jordan. Okay, I see where some of y'all are at. If you don't have a Jordan, you can sit this one out. But if you have a Jordan right now and you know it's in flood stage, get back, come here and get behind this word and let God step in it before you get in it. Don't you get As a matter of fact, you can take it off right now. Because you know you got a mess around you. But you look good on the outside. But you got some stuff going on the inside. Man of God, woman of God, before you deal with your Jordan, before you deal with her, before you deal with him, before you deal with them, before you deal with it, you need to hear from God and wait for his word to step in it before you get in it. Somebody help me preach this word and tell your neighbor, wait on the Lord, because he will make a way. Won't he do it? Has he ever made a way through your Jordan? Won't he make a way? I said, won't he do it? Besides, there ain't no need in you getting ahead of God's word with everything you're dealing with. Now come here and get behind this here word. Listen, family, if you want to be ready to cross your Jordan after his word steps in it, you must be ready. First of all, you must be ready to break camp as soon as you get word to do so. Did you hear what I said? You must be ready to break camp as soon as you get word to do so. You can't stay where you are and get to where God is trying to lead you at the same time. Break camp, y'all. Some folk go through life within the tension of where they are and where they need to be, and they never go anywhere. They just go through a tug of war where they are and where they need to be. But the Lord gave me permission to tell you there's no sense in him making a way if you don't ever plan on going that way. There's no sense in him opening up a door if you have no plans to go through it. Somebody say, preach, pastor. I'm trying to. Y'all, the mothers and fathers of this generation were given the word to go into the promised land, but they got scared and refused to break camp. Instead of getting behind God's word, they got behind their fear. But if I had been there, I would have told them to come here and get behind this word. Y'all, they failed to realize that just as God had gone before them when it came to Pharaoh, and just as God had gone before them when it came to the Red Sea, that he would go before them into the promised land. They forgot about the principle that if he's done it before, he can do it again right here and right. Is there anybody in the house who believes in that principle, that if he's done it before, he can do it again? If he helped you before, he can do it again. If he helped pay your bills before, he can do it again. If he blessed you when you were sick, he can do it again. If he blessed your child, he can do it again. If he blessed your place of work, he can do it again. Somebody say he can do it. He can do it. He can do it. Listen, man, I'll tell you why. You need to always come close and hear the words of the Lord your God. You need to come close and always hear the words from the Lord your God, because he'll send you a word of exhortation, to help you prepare for your Jordan, even when it's at flood stage. Have you ever heard a word of exhortation? Okay, here it is. Wait on the Lord and be of good courage, and he will strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Okay, here's another word. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Okay, here's another word. He will keep you in perfect peace if you keep your mind stayed on him. Okay, here's another word of exhortation. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse,
enemies. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. And pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. Here's another word. If you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus Christ and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you shall be saved. Here's another word. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of love and power and of a sound mind. Okay, here's another word. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your request be made known to God. Well, not only will he give you a word of exhortation, but he'll send before you a word of confirmation. Did you hear what I said? He'll confirm some stuff. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and to give you a future. Here's another word. All things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and who've been called according to his purpose. Here's another word. And it came to pass. Trouble on earth always. After the rain, the sun will shine again. Here's another word. If God be for us, he's more than the world against us. Here's another word. Yet, in all these things, we are more than conquerors. Here's another word. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Your time is on the way. Your place is on the way. Your blessing is on the way. Here's another word. The battle is not yours. It's the Lord's. He will fight and you will win. Am I right about it? Here's another